It's a genuine privilege to join this dialogue that's being initiated today by ABDC, and I believe also inclusive of your colleagues from New Zealand, on accountability beyond climate action. But I thought to better connect with you across time and space, I'd just like to open with a short acknowledgement. Mal mentioned that I'm in a small hotel room without a window in London, but as you can perhaps tell from the accent, I'm South African. And the picture behind me, whilst there's no formal or recognized land acknowledgement where I'm from, I felt that this occasion perhaps calls for such a statement. Noel suggested that today we're looking forward and we're co-imagining the future that ABDC will help create. I think it's important to recognize that our future is deeply rooted in our shared past. So I live on the foothills of the Outeniqua mountain on the southern tip of the continent. And Outeniqua refers to the land of those who gather honey. Some of you may guess this correctly. It's the land of the Khoi and the San people, who are the original custodians of that region. In fact, some refer to them as the First Nation amongst First Nations. Genetic studies have shown that the Khoisan are direct descendants of the earliest Homo sapiens, the earliest branch of the human family tree, with genetic markers that are distinct yet connected to all other populations globally, and they have an intimate connection with the land and the environment, and in that way much to teach us about sustainability and global responsibility. So these mountains serve as a natural symbol of that wisdom. It's a place where they lived in harmony with nature, practiced stewardship long before the modern world began grappling with its own impact on the planet. That's just in terms of acknowledgement. The Globally Responsible Leadership Initiative, just briefly, because I'm not here to sell that, but it's a mouthful. And GRLI really is an action-oriented inquiry. It's a question. The question that we hold is simply this: what is global responsibility? Before I get into that, I might mention also that since we've just heard from UNGC as well, Kate, that GRLI resulted from the first organized relationship between business schools and the UN, when the European Foundation for Management Development and UN Global Compact issued a call in 2003. And today it's held as a strategic partnership between EFMD, the Europeans, ACSB International, and the student network Oikos. So we hold a question: what is global responsibility? What does it mean to lead responsibly in an interconnected world? What does it take? How do we support the development of global responsibility? And in that context, as already been suggested, we have to reflect on the significance of the challenges that we face, and that they demand a fundamental shift in how we perceive and practice our responsibilities as planetary citizens, as educators, and as leaders. One might even say it requires a shift in consciousness. And it definitely goes beyond climate. In fact, it goes beyond what has become sustainability as usual. In a world where there are 8 billion of us that are pressing against multiple planetary boundaries, I think transgressing 6 of 9, it's not only the stability and the resilience of the Earth system as a whole, of which climate is one part, but there's the geopolitical conflicts that are escalating. There's global governance systems that are fragmenting and in some places failing. There's social inequality and discontent on the rise. And all of us are faced with this confluence of challenges or crises. So we need to acknowledge and face the reality that the underlying systems that have created that are still benefiting from the work that we do. So this is nothing short of a call for systemic transformation. But if we want to transform systemically, we're going to have to innovate. So innovation is essential. However, we find ourselves in a technology-dominated kind of age, and have overemphasized the progress innovation that is technology coupled, and in the process neglected our ability to innovate relationally at different levels. So what I mean by that is our being in healthy relationship to our own humanity, to myself, to others in meaningful connection, to we, and then in a healthy relationship to the planet in a regenerative way, all of us. So in the GRLI, we say I, we, all of us. So that kind of brings me to how do all of us ensure the development and emergence of deep collaboration and relational innovation that serves people and planet. Now, I want to be very clear that this inquiry, this question, does not belong to the GRLI. Our role is not to bring the answer or the solution, which is, by the way, why we are staying purposefully small to act as a catalytic initiative rather than a large institution. We are bringing that question to ABDC, and we view ABDC as critically important as a platform and a body for reach and activation of this inquiry into global responsibility. We have learned that it's not a static concept. It's a living, breathing process of discovery. And when I started connecting with Noel, with the chair of your group, and with Melissa, it was actually as a result of one such emergent process that was underway. It's called Be the Tipping Point, and I'll put a link into the chat as well for those online to go and have a look at. There's a little video about that, where we asked what would it look like if we created a positive tipping point to counter all the negative tipping points, a positive tipping point in and through business education through an innovative process that we're busy building. Let me wrap up on GRLI. Over the last 2 decades of GRLI's existence, our process of inquiry have led to the initiation of a number of actions and platforms. One of the earliest initiatives was to ask what it would look like if there were a set of principles for responsible business education. And we formulated 10 principles for responsible business education. And then, of course, in consultation with a number of bodies, distilled what's now known as PRME, which, of course, is housed by Global Compact. We then asked what would a blueprint for a business school look like if people and planet matters, which led to the 50+20 vision, which had a significant impact on the EFMD EQUIS standards and later on ASCB's chapters on societal impact. Asked what would it look like if we measured the sustainability literacy of students. So there's climate literacy, but then there's also sustainability literacy. So some of you may be familiar with SULI test, again, something that we help catalyze. And we asked what would it look like if business school rankings measured the positive impact of business schools on society. And of course, there's now a whole network or initiative around the so-called positive impact rating. And having said that, we bring a process and a question. That's it. We don't have the answer. So to get us started today, we invited a number of deans, and I don't know whom of them are in the room and whom of them are online, to provide some opening thoughts on what accountability beyond climate might look like. And the format here, and Mel's going to help us here, is that we will have a short interactive conversation, hopefully, that flows, and that once we feel that it comes to a natural close between the 3 or 4 people that are taking part in it, that there will be some potential questions for us to break into smaller groups and discuss, and then come back into the room and hear some thoughts. So it's a fishbowl meeting. If we had the luxury of all being in the same room, we would have a large circle of chairs. And in the middle of the circle, there would be 3 or 4 chairs where our conversation starters would sit to talk with and amongst each other. So the rest of us would be listening attentively. And then at some point, we would tap them on the shoulder and say, we've heard enough from you. We now want to say something. I can't read the room, so I'm hoping.
So, yeah, I realize that the camera is facing the front of the room. So for people online, okay, you can see the podium here and the screen looking back at yourselves, I think. Is that what you can see there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually do have, luckily, not that we pre-prepared this earlier, John, by all means, but we do have a horseshoe room here with people, both deans from ABDC, some New Zealand colleague deans who have joined, and members from the industry consultation have remained in the room as well and online. I believe some Associate Deans of Education may have entered the room or not. No, they've gone to another. Yeah, I think they've gone after all that. Yeah, so that means we do have the room that you've asked. We've just some chairs at the front. Unfortunately, can you see those now, John? You can see those chairs? Yeah. So we can see those. And what I'm going to do, I'm pasting what I'm suggesting we start off with into the chat for those on the online, and just for the benefit of those in the room, what I'm suggesting we hold as a question to kick this off is, what would it look like if ABDC placed an inquiry into developing global responsibility at the center of its purpose? Now, I know that I think we have Paul Ballantyne in the room,
and Caitlin Byrne. I'm not sure, but right now the chairs are still empty.
Is there someone online who wants to virtually signal to put themselves on a chair?
Of course, yeah, then they can just put up their hand and we can unmute them.